Hey guys, tonight we are spending some time with Everett Ruess, a 20-year-old artist and poet who walked alone into the canyon country of southern Utah in the autumn of 1934 and was never seen again. He left behind 2 burros, penned safely inside a quiet box canyon. He left behind letters and paintings and a single word carved into the soft desert rock. And then he left behind only silence. Before we settle in for this one, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely find value in what we do here. No pressure and no guilt. And thank you, truly, for all of the case suggestions. We're also now on Spotify, so check the description for the link if you would rather listen there. Now dim those lights and settle in. This is a quiet story, and Everett's story deserves to be heard carefully. He was the kind of young man who wrote letters home about the color of the light on sandstone, who carved his name into places almost no one would ever read it, who loved beauty so much that he gave up nearly everything else to be near it. And to understand what happened, we need to go back. Where does a young man go when he wants to walk into the wild on purpose? What did the searchers find? And what did they never find? And why, 90 years later, do we still not know how this gentle, restless person met his end? Let's start from the beginning, with who Everett was. Everett Ruess was born in Oakland, California, in the spring of 1914. His father was a Unitarian minister, his mother an artist, and the family moved often, from California to Massachusetts to Indiana and back to Los Angeles again. It was a household that prized art and ideas, a place where the children were encouraged to keep diaries and write letters, and Everett took to that life completely. By the time he was a boy of 12, he was already filling notebooks with verse and sketches. He was, by every account, a sensitive and singular young person. He made woodblock prints and linoleum cuts. He painted in watercolor. He wrote poetry, and he felt a pull toward wild places that he could never quite explain to the people who loved him. When he was barely 16, he graduated from Hollywood High School, and then, instead of settling into the ordinary path of a young man in 1931, he set off alone into the deserts of the American Southwest. He traveled with burros, on foot, through Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. Along the way, he met and impressed some of the great artists of his time, the photographers Ansel and Dorothea Lange among them, and the painter Maynard Dixon. They saw real promise in him. But Everett did not want a studio or a gallery or a career. He wanted the canyons, the red rock, and the deep silence at the end of the day. Let's talk about what he was really chasing out there. In his letters home, Everett wrote about beauty, the way other people write about love. He once wrote that he had known beauty so piercing it was almost unbearable. And in another letter to his older brother Waldo, written when he was only 18, he wrote a line that would later feel unbearable in a very different way. He said that he would never stop wandering, and that when the time came to die, he would find the wildest, loneliest, most desolate spot there was. He could not have known how those words would be read by the people who came looking for him. To be fair, plenty of restless young men write dramatic things in letters and then go on to live long and quiet lives. But Everett meant it more than most. The wilderness was never a passing phase for him. It was the whole point of his short life. In November of 1934, Everett arrived in the small town of Escalante, Utah. He spent a few days there, talking with local families, playing with the children, buying what supplies he could afford, Then he sent his last letters. To his parents, he wrote that he would be out of reach for a couple of months and home by the end of the year. To Waldo, he wrote something quieter, something that has haunted everyone who has read it since. He said he did not expect to return to what he called civilization anytime soon. And then, later that November, Everett Ruess walked south out of Escalante with 2 burros and a few simple belongings, headed into the labyrinth of canyons along the Escalante River. Picture it for a moment. You're walking beside him in the cold, thin light of late autumn, somewhere in that maze of sandstone about 45 miles from the nearest town. The air is dry and sharp. The canyon walls rise red and gold on either side of you. There is no one for miles in any direction, and that is exactly how he wanted it. He was wearing a light red shirt, one later described as thin as smoking paper. He had been warned about the coming winter. He went anyway, the way he always had. For a while, no one worried, because Everett had told his family he would be unreachable, and so they simply waited. But when his mail began to pile up uncollected, and the weeks stretched well past the time he had promised to come home, his parents grew frightened. They wrote to the post office in Escalante, and in the late winter of 1935, a search party of local men set out into the canyons to look for him. What they found in Davis Gulch was strange, and it has stayed strange ever since. Deep in the canyon, behind a fence of brush that Everett himself had built, they found his 2 burros, calm and healthy. Near a natural alcove in the rock, they found the remains of his campsite. They found a footprint they believed was his, and carved into the canyon wall, they found a single word, 4 letters, NEMO, with the year marked beneath it. Have you ever wondered what a person means to say when they leave a word like that behind? NEMO is Latin for no one. It is also the name of the lonely sea captain in the Jules Verne novel that Everett had loved as a boy, and his parents confirmed that he knew the character well, but no one could say for certain why he carved it or what he was thinking when he did. Of Everett himself, there was no trace at all. No body was ever found, no final letter was left behind. Nothing remained but the burros, the quiet camp, and that one carved word. So what happened to Everett Ruess? The honest answer is that we do not know. But over the years, people have offered theories, and they are worth walking through gently. Some believe he simply fell. The canyon country is beautiful and unforgiving, full of cliffs and sudden floods and places where a person can slip and never be found. Others think he drowned trying to cross the Colorado River. Some believed he met with violence, robbed by cattle thieves, or caught up in something that had nothing to do with him at all. And there is a quieter, more hopeful theory that Everett never died in those canyons, that he walked away from his old life on purpose and lived out his years somewhere under another name. To be fair, there has never been solid proof for any single one of these. In 2009, it seemed for a brief moment that the mystery had finally been solved. Human remains were found in a place called Comb Ridge, and early testing suggested they belonged to Everett. His family allowed themselves to hope, but more careful DNA analysis revealed the truth. The remains were not his, and they belonged to someone else entirely. And so the search, after all of that hope, simply began again. Today, more than 90 years later, the disappearance of Everett Ruess remains unsolved. No remains have ever been confirmed as his, and no one was ever charged. The canyons he loved so much have kept their secret. But beyond the mystery, beyond the theories and the searches, and the carved word in the rock, there was a real person. A young man named Everett, who made beautiful things with his hands, who wrote letters home about the light on the cliffs, who loved his brother and his parents even as he chose a life apart from them. He was 20 years old. He had decades ahead of him that he never got to live. So tonight, as you think about Everett's story, maybe you remember him not for how he vanished, but for how he lived. For the quiet courage it takes to follow the thing you love into the unknown, and for the gentleness of a young man who only ever wanted to be near beauty. So many of us spend our whole lives searching for something like that. Everett found it, and then he was gone. His story is still unfinished, but the beauty he walked into is still out there, in the red rock and the long desert light, waiting for the rest of us to notice it too.